Hello and welcome to my review of Star Wars Rebels Season 3, Episode 19, Twin Suns. Now you might be asking, why am I dressed up? Well, that's why. If you're talking about Star Wars, why not wear a Star Wars tie? And you can't wear a Star Wars tie without a nice shirt that looks like it has stars on it. Anyway, but there will be spoilers ahead for the Twin Suns, and so consider yourselves warned on that. Let's get into it. The beginning of this episode with Ezra and Zeb sleeping in their bunks, and then Ezra hearing Obi-Wan over the holocron. Yeah, it is so. We saw this in that trailer that they had while they were having that mid-season hiatus, and it was good back then, and it is still good today. I didn't know that was in this. I just, for some reason, I didn't think that would be in this episode, but it was, and I was super glad, and it totally works. And it was awesome to see, or to know that they had two different people playing Obi-Wan in this movie, or doing the voice of him, was James Arnold Taylor and then Stephen Stanton. And man, Stephen Stanton as old Obi-Wan, Alec Guinness Obi-Wan, he is like spot on with his voice acting. Like, I have to give him major props for getting it as close as he got to Alec Guinness. It was beautiful. But man, the way this episode opens with him finding that holocron, and then, you know, hearing Maul through the Sith holocron, which is cool. I did like this episode very much, not only because we had amazing Obi-Wan and Maul stuff, but we also had like some lore stuff with the holocrons. Like, I had no idea that people like could communicate through vast distances through a holocron. Like, Maul is speaking to Ezra through that holocron, and he's like manipulating him, and it's so crazy. But the one thing that like kind of was like like, did that really happen, was when Ezra took the ship to go to Tatooine and nobody followed him. Like, Kanan should have known that, dude, Ezra is going after a master, you know, a former master in the Jedi code. Like, he's a former master. He's Master Kenobi. Like, a lot of people knew about him, including Kanan. And Kanan was just like, he left. We'll see what happens. I didn't understand why they didn't have to, or why those characters didn't go after Ezra. I understand from like a Lucasfilm thing, because there is some backlash to having Ezra Bridger on Tatooine, but they would have been like a ton of backlash if you had Kanan there, Zeb there, Hera. Like, so I understand why they kept those characters, didn't go after Ezra in that sense. But in reality, they probably should have gone after him. I mean, he's going after a Jedi Master, and he's going after Maul, and Kanan knows that, like, Maul is not good for business, as far as, you know, Maul wants to train Ezra to become, you know, a dark side wielder, and I feel like Kanan should have went after him and been like, no, this is not bueno. Other than that, like, it was so good when he got on Tatooine, and it was awesome because they set up, like, in the very beginning, even before we see Ezra on that thing, like, Maul, it's just that clip that we get, like, they released it on the internet like last week, where it's just Maul, you know, telling, like, he's lost, and he's saying that, and then he yells out Kenobi. Like, Sam Witwer does an amazing job as Maul. I'm kind of sad to see Maul go, but like, Sam Witwer does an amazing job with that Kenobi scream. It was like, oh man, how do you do that? But it set up that, like, Tatooine, it didn't show Tatooine it didn't show anything like brand new from Tatooine, but it did, like, it just reinforced the Tatooine, like Luke says in episode 4, it is the, like, if there's a bright center to the galaxy, or the universe, I think he says, this is the planet farthest from it, and this planet is not helpful to a lot of people. Like, Maul gets lost, Ezra, like, the Sand People, well, I mean, they're native Tatooinians, they try to take out Ezra. They blow up his ship, and then Ezra is just like walking through the place, which is kind of weird. What I found kind of weird is that the holocrons act like a compass. I found that weird for a minute, and then after I was like, yeah, this is expanding on the lore that Star Wars has. Like holocrons are now compasses to lead you. Like the Jedi holocron led him to Obi-Wan, and then he had the Sith holocron, which led him to Maul, and which like it was very interesting to learn new things about the holocrons, because even in like the Legends books, and I've read quite a few Legends books where they have like the Darth Bane trilogy and then the Darth Revan, they don't really talk about the holocrons in that sense. So they're making something new with this episode, and I very much enjoyed that. But man, Obi-Wan in this episode was so good. I totally get why he knew who Ezra Bridger was, because like last season, I believe it was, Ezra talked to Yoda through some kind of Force vision, and I immediately thought, okay, as soon as Obi-Wan said, "Hello, or you're in the wrong place, Ezra Bridger," I was like, oh, okay, so he's been talking to Yoda, because Yoda knows Ezra Bridger from that talk they had over the Force telephone. And so I was like, yeah, if Yoda talks, crazy music, if Yoda talks to Ezra, then how much more would he be talking to Obi-Wan? And so it totally made sense that Obi-Wan knows so much. And later on we see that Obi-Wan has not been suppressing the Force. He has been, becoming in tune with it. Just like Yoda was super in tune with the Force on Dagobah, Obi-Wan was doing the same thing on Tatooine. And when they're having that conversation, it was just so like, it showed such a difference between Obi-Wan and Kanan, where Kanan is not a full, he's not a master. He's not someone who probably should be teaching Ezra, but and that's not Kanan's fault. Kanan, he's a victim of circumstance, and Obi-Wan is such a better teacher, like teaching Kanan, like, dude, you shouldn't be here. Maul messed you up. Maul put you on a dark path, and not he didn't say a dark path. He said Maul changed or put you on a different path. And I wonder if that must be a foreshadowing into something that Ezra's doing, or he's going to have to do, where he's either going bad, or things are not going to turn out well for Ezra Bridger. And I like that Obi-Wan kind of laid that groundwork for it. It was awesome, and it just showed that like Obi-Wan is way better of a teacher than Kanan. When Maul shows up there at the end, it was just so like, it started sending shivers down my spine. It was so good. It was so well done. And I like that Obi-Wan was like, Ezra, go to the north, you'll find your way home there. And Ezra like he didn't immediately, he asked him, what we can take him together, and then he was like, no, it's not happening. Go to the north, leave. And when Obi-Wan tells you to leave, you leave, and you follow instructions like you're told. It was so awesome. And man, and I very much liked when Maul was like, I'll see you later, apprentice. But yeah, not really. This is something that I wish they would have done with the end of the season, where they have a whole hour, 40 minutes, I guess it would be without commercials, where you would have Maul and Obi-Wan, that confrontation, because man, that conversation that they had before they fought was so good. Like, Obi-Wan was in tune with the Force, and he knew that Maul was, throwing his life away because of anger, because of hate, and like even Maul knew it to a certain extent. He was just like, let's do this thing, and I very much enjoyed that. What I did, like what I thought was going to happen didn't happen, because once they finished the conversation and the lightsabers ignited, it was so good. But like the way the music just kept on swelling up, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was just like, oh man, like I thought they were gonna cut to black. I honestly did. I was like, are they gonna cut back to Ezra? Because it was like, it was that like that swelling like right before they do that, dun, 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 like it's that thing. But it was so good that they didn't. And then when Maul made the first move, it just showed that like Obi-Wan is so much better than Maul, and he took him out in 3 swipes, and it was like, dude, I was like, oh, here we go, here we go. And literally as soon, like I literally said, I hope this is the whole rest of the episode. They could have, and that's one thing, like, yeah, it was good to show that Obi-Wan is like so much, more in tune with the Force, and he was just like, no monkey business, let's get this done. And yeah, he killed Maul, but I felt like you could have had that be the whole end of the episode and made that fight a little bit longer, just a few hits longer, and you wouldn't have lost anything, because you could have skipped out on the whole Ezra coming back, and the Maul is gone. I mean, sure, that's fine, but you could have skipped out on that whole scene where Ezra's like, I messed up. I should never have left. I should always stay with my family. Like, come on, you're gonna give me that scene instead of extending that fight scene between Maul and Obi-Wan just a little bit longer. Like, we don't need to know that. Just in the next episode, just show Ezra back with their gang, and we'll all fill in the blank that yeah, Ezra got Maul's ship, and that Ezra got off of Tatooine and got back to Chopper Base. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. Like, we didn't really need that scene with Ezra. You could have made that Maul and Obi-Wan scene longer, and it would have been so much better, because you could have still had the same exact result, where you could have still shown that Maul was good, but Obi-Wan was way better, and you could have still had that conversation right after the fight was over, where Maul's like, oh man, Maul to me was like, okay, if I'm gonna, like, I'm damaged, so if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die, the Warrior's way. I'm gonna die the way I got my rise to prominence, where he got his rise to prominence fighting Obi-Wan. He died fighting Obi-Wan. Like, it was such a warrior's death kind of thing. And that conversation that they have where he asks Obi-Wan, is he the chosen one? And Obi-Wan's like, yes. And it was so good. And that totally to me changes like a lot of Star Wars, to where now, in the current state of Star Wars, Luke is the chosen one and not Anakin. And that, to me, that's way better. I never liked the whole Anakin being the chosen one thing. I never liked that. And now Luke is the chosen one thing. It's like they're fixing Lucas's flaws, and I commend them for that. But it was so good to have that little conversation. And then at the end, the very end, where you have him riding on that funky looking lizard thing, and you hear Aunt Beru, Luke. It was so good, man. I'm pretty sure they probably lifted that audio straight from episode 4, but it worked. And you just see the little silhouette of Luke running. I was like, oh my goodness. I got so excited. Like, I wanted to watch episode 4. Like, right. I wanted to stay there. Like, I want to watch episode 4, like, right now. But I want more episodes like that with Obi-Wan on Tatooine and taking care of Luke. Like, it's just so much. Filling in that gap with Obi-Wan was such a genius move for them to do. The only thing is, I wish that we would have skipped out on that Ezra scene with the family thing and just stayed with Obi-Wan and Maul and had a little bit longer of a fight scene, or even a longer conversation right before. But actually, no, make the fight scene longer, because man, I was like, oh, I hope this is the rest of the episode. Didn't happen, but still, this episode is way better than last week's episode. Are you like, how? I don't understand how Lucasfilm and Dave Filoni can do something like have a singing robot last week, and like sing, like not only singing but like quoting lines from an earthly song. How do you go from that to having one of your best episodes ever, where you have such, Star Wars, absolute spine-tingling episode like it was this week? I don't get how you go from that from last week's episode to this week's episode. Last week's episode will go down as probably the worst episode in Rebels history, where this week's episode was so much better. I just don't understand why you don't do things like this all the time and not have those filler episodes. Man, shorten up the season. If you don't want to do, if you're just throwing those episodes in there, we don't need that, just make it shorter. Or give us more Maul and Obi-Wan and Ezra, please. Anyway, this episode was amazing. I want to watch this episode. When I finished it, I went back because I was watching it on VOD, and I went back and I watched the end like 3 times. It was so good. It was just it invokes that feeling that you have in episode 4, where you have Luke, looking at the twin suns. To me, at that last shot, where you have Obi-Wan looking at the silhouette of Luke coming back, like that gave me the feels that Luke looking at the twin suns does. It was just so good. Very much enjoyed this episode. If you enjoyed this review of season 3 of Rebels, episode 19, Twin Suns, go ahead and hit that like button. If you want to see more things like this, where I talk Star Wars, review Star Wars books, review next week's duel episode, the finale with Thrawn. Hopefully he doesn't die. Hit that subscribe button to get notified every time I put up a new video, and thank you for watching this one.